Oh, phew. Maybe they ran out of batteries or gas for their chainsaws. Out time.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's batteries are
Perfect
the issue.
timing. It's not a, what is it, a wireless? Cordless. A wireless chainsaw.
Okay, we should now be live.
Great. So I was contemplating a Halloween costume, everyone.
We'll have to hear about it.
We're thinking Jack and the Beanstalk, where I'm Jack and C-Mac is the Beanstalk.
It's a good idea. I like it.
That
Classic.
could be cute, right? And we put a little castle at the top of the beanstalk and it could carry a goose.
I was gonna say maybe he should be the goose.
He could be the goose. Tried to convince him to go as a chicken once, but sit in like a wagon. So I made like a little chicken coop and a wagon and I could pull him around, but he rejected that idea.
All right, yeah. I think I'd prefer to be a beanstalk
Yeah.
rather than a chicken in a
Or
wagon coop.
I also really wanted to go as Princess Bride, but kind of obscure. Like I was like, well, I could be Wesley and you could be an ROUS. Anyone rodent of unusual size?
Oh, yeah, no, it's been a long time since I've seen that, Megan.
He's like,
Sorry.
you'd only get acknowledgement from a couple people. And I was like, shoot, I guess so.
Should we announce to anyone who's maybe watching on YouTube the situation?
Folks, if we have any viewers on YouTube, thank you for joining us this morning. We're waiting for our task force members to arrive. Looks like one, Emily Berginu, is just tuning in. Good
Okay. Hello.
morning.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. It's a warm day today across everywhere. It sounds like triple digits in Sacramento.
Yeah, did you get my text? I'll only be able to hang on for an hour today due to pretty much a full day of meetings.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. We'll get through as much as we can. We have a pretty dense slide deck, a number of things to talk about. Hopefully Lawrence joins. I did check in with him at the end of last week and this morning. So hopefully he tunes in soon.
Great.
But we can just maybe think about, Emily, if we don't get through everything, maybe we want to try to find another hour
Okay.
before the end of the month, if there is work that you all want to advance before the October draft goes out.
Yeah, I can make myself available for another hour for sure,
Great.
if that's needed. Thank you. Uncle Lawrence.
Oh, perfect. Lawrence, how are you?
Hi, Emily. Hi, Megan. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Lawrence.
I had mentioned before you joined, Lawrence, that I'll be only able to hang on for an hour today due to other priorities, meetings.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get into it. Give me a couple minutes to go through our introductory slides. Good morning, everyone. Hope you all are well. Welcome to a meeting of the California Agricultural Land Equity Task Force. This is a meeting of the Goal 1 Subcommittee. Goal 1 is focused on tribal stewardship and land return. My name is Megan Wiley. I'm with Sacramento State University, providing staff support to the task force, along with a few of my colleagues here today from California Strategic Growth Council. We have Tessa Salzman, and we have Camille Frazier and Caleb Swanson joining from the physical location. Very quickly, let's just review that the task force itself was established in the California Budget Act of 2022, Assembly Bill 179. It is a 13-member task force and an independent body directed to submit a report by January 1st, 2026 to the Legislature and Governor that includes a set of policy recommendations on how to address the agricultural land equity crisis. Task force members are working to finalize this report of recommendations by the deadline. The report is being developed following 2 years of meetings, site visits, guest speakers, presentations, and community engagements across engagement sessions across California. A lot of work has gone into this draft, and today we are focused on topics, goals, sub-goals related to Goal 1. Very quickly, I'd like to start us out with participation guidelines, and these are the same for every participant in these meetings, whether it be task force member, staff, or public participant. In all of our meetings, we respect diverse perspectives, we encourage inclusive participation, and all agree to use courteous language. All speakers must be respectful, considerate, and on topic, so that together we can create a safe, respectful, and inclusive space for meaningful discussion. So thank you for helping us maintain that. We do have multiple opportunities for public comments today. If you're joining us just now, we are scheduled to go for 2 hours. However, one of our members, Vice Chair Emily Brigano, has competing priorities, so we'll end about 11 o'clock today. So staying on point will be very important. However, if you're joining us and you're a member of the public and you would like to share a public comment during one of our 2 designated public comment periods, you can do so by filling out a form at this website listed here. And you can fill out a form for each item. One will be for the working session and the other is general public comment if you wanted to comment on anything related to task force business outside of goal 1. And you can also raise your hand in your Zoom toolbar so that we know that you are ready and interested in public comment. We're asking folks to adhere to a 2-minute timeline. You can find your raise hand feature at the bottom of your toolbar, either via a raise hand icon or sometimes under a reactions icon that may be shaped like a heart or a smiley face. Our plan for today is a working session. We'll review the recent feedback received on Goal 1 since our August task force meeting, which includes conversations we had at that August task force meeting, along with some input from community engagement sessions. And then we'll methodically go through and discuss the draft goal and sub-goals therein. Before we close out, we'll review action items and assign follow-up tasks and guidelines and make space for general public comment. Very quickly, let's do a roll call. When I call your name, please say good morning or here. Vice Chair Emily Brigano.
Here.
And Member Lauren Carlin.
Here.
Wonderful. Quorum's established. All subcommittee members are here. So let's launch into our working session. To consider. We might not get through all of this, but we're going to start with the recent feedback and time permitting. Let's consider the order of recommendations as they show up in the section in the draft report in case there is some reordering that might be of interest to maximize impact, and also the scope and level of detail for all of the content related to Goal 1. And Tessa is the lead supporting development of this section, so I'm going to turn it over to Tessa.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Hi, everybody. So yeah, like Megan mentioned, just kind of be holding in mind the order of recommendations and the scope and the level of detail, and we can come back to that. And I do want to note that we sent out the initial revisions, so the Word document that has the updated Goal 1 text. So that's what we'll be referring to today. And I do encourage you both to look through the overview section in particular, because that's quite updated. There's been a lot of changes since the August draft. If you have any initial input on that right now, you can go ahead and start with that. But I think any detailed input on that section would be best either in writing, or we can find another time to talk about it, just in the interest of time for today. And then I did want to remind you too, we're going to talk through a bunch of input from the task force, from community, from interagency. And just a reminder that this is your report. We're sharing the input with you, and you can of course choose to integrate it to whatever degree makes sense for you. And you can of course choose to decline to incorporate it as well. So it's completely your choice. These are all just proposals. So starting with this slide, I'll move through the first couple relatively quickly because these are representing pretty small changes in the report from the October meeting discussion. First line you'll see here, case study is still in progress on the Golden Eagle Farm case study, and we're hoping to include that in the October draft. We are also working on the list of federally recognized tribal nations, including the Modoc Nation of Oklahoma, and then including that with total acreage. Yes, Emily.
Yeah, Tessa, Hoka, do you know where the case study will live in the report? Like at the end? Have we thought about that yet?
I think that's a good question for you. I think what we had talked about before is embedded in the recommendations in goal 1.
Okay.
How does that sound?
So will it be the full report or just like snippets of the report then?
Of the case study?
Excuse me, of the case study, yes.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how long it is, because we can kind of mock that up and see how it looks, see if it fits well, and then otherwise we could put it in the appendix and just have excerpts in the goal
Are
1.
we expecting the case study to be a page, 2 pages?
We were aiming for about a half a page. Is that right, Megan? Because I know you've been working on this a little closer.
Yes, we have a draft from Essence that we got at the end of last week, and it's about 3/4 of a page. Hasn't undergone editorial review yet. So it's hot off the press, but it needs to go through a few passes of editorial review.
Great. So it's definitely doable because I wasn't sure how long it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll try to mock that into the October draft, and then we can always edit as needed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the second line here, we are working on the list of federally recognized tribes and their acreage, and we wanted to ask a quick question about membership data. That is proving a little bit more difficult to track down, especially accurate numbers. There's not specifically an authoritative, like a single authoritative source, because individual tribes are ultimately responsible for keeping their own rolls. So, and then there's census data, but none of it is quite accurate. None of it is there's a lot of questions around how accurate it is.
Yeah,
And so
you would definitely would have to go through each
tribe
band, tribe, or rancheria.
So our proposal is to not include that data and just keep it to the acreage by tribe. So just wanted to get a thumbs up or thumbs down on that from you all.
I think it's pretty vital to have in there, but if it's not feasible to put in there, then yeah, we would need to leave that out. It's important though, because there's the factor of like reservation land. That's what we're putting in, right? Just the amount of reservation land, or federally recognized land, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But for my tribe, most of our memberships live off that reservation land that we're going to be highlighting. So that's why I'm saying it's important to know.
Yeah, and I think some of the data, so in the census, there is a program that tabulates populations, but only on reservations. And so to your point, Emily, the numbers would be lower than are actually accurate. So there's not really a singular source that we're able to track down. Did you want to jump in, Camille? I know you've been working on this.
Oh, I think you've said it all, Tessa, and I also hear, Emily, your points. I wanted to note that the land holdings, because Emily, you had mentioned we're likely going to be using BLM tracks data, so it will include reservation land, but also land that is sort of trust land that is in that land holding map that Bureau of Land Management maintains. But to Tessa's point about membership data, from what we have been able to discern from talking with colleagues at LCI and SGC, really the census is recording data on reservation land. So if we did include those numbers, it would be potentially very inaccurate and maybe misrepresentative of tribes' membership roles. So Emily, you had mentioned it would be critical, like it has to be, that the tribes would sort of provide their numbers and permission. I'm wondering, that seems like it would be quite a lot to ask at this point in our process. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts there, Lawrence or Emily, what feels valuable given the timeline that we're working with, and how you would recommend us to be respectful of tribes' data and time, how you would recommend we proceed with that piece of the table.
I would just document why you can't determine the membership counts. Because, and as far as respect, I'm not sure. I think it is respectful to put their membership counts. Like if we want to know the membership, the population of North Korea, I'm sure we can get an estimate of that. So if these are sovereign nations, the BIA, I know we submit a membership roll count to the BIA, my nation, annually. So I would just document that you reached out to them and there was no reply.
Okay, thank you.
Or publish the reply. I don't know if they'll say, oh, we can't share that information because you're a state agency and we don't share that with you.
Okay, thanks, Lawrence. Will you say one more time, so BIA is who, did you say that's annual or was that part of the census process? Do you know?
Annual,
Okay,
it's a BIA census actually that we fill out a report for
Okay.
our count.
thank you for that. We'll do a bit more digging there and then we'll just be very explicit whatever the outcome is. And share that, of course, with you to review.
Great.
Yeah, it's a learning. I mean thanks. And I think it's just all part of the learning process on how we deal with tribal nations and get data.
Thank you for talking through that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Great. Okay, so we'll move on here. There's a couple more up on this slide, which were fairly small edits that you will see as you read through the text. Just things like ensuring that we're focusing public land related recommendations in 1.1 and private land related recommendations in 1.2. So you'll see that slight reorganization as you look through the draft. You can go to the next slide, Megan. Here's another short list of small edits that were requested during the August meeting. And we've completed those and they would be reflected in that text that you received before this meeting. So I think in the interest of time, we'll keep going. All right, so we wanted to have a quick discussion, oh, not necessarily quick, but we wanted to have a discussion around goal 1.1.b, which is the Tribal Lands Return Commission. So just to remind you, this is the recommendation you'll see up on the slide. And then if you're looking at that text, you can see there's I through 3 as well, 1 through 3, with some more detail about what this commission is going to look like. And there was quite a few questions that came up about this entity from both the August meeting conversation, interagency, and community input. And so we wanted to walk through some of these questions. The question that came up by the task force and interagency was essentially, is this the right mechanism or format to do this work? And so there were some questions about how to establish this body, how it would be implemented, and even how it would be created from the beginning. And so I wanted to kind of just float that for you all and see what your reaction was. If you can maybe go back to the August meeting when that question was raised. And just wanting to confirm, do you feel like this is the right entity and the right place to be housing this? I think maybe another more specific point of concern was around how this could lead to intertribal conflict, being that it would be like an elected body with regional representatives. So any kind of reflections or thoughts in response to what you see up on the screen here? If not, that's all right. I think if you don't have comments, we'll just assume that you like the current format and keep the text as is, keep this recommendation in place as is. Is that feeling right to you? maybe thumbs up or come off mute and say yes or no.
I probably will lose service right now, but should be supported just like the task forces. I don't know.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Emily. I think we might have lost you.
There is some points of clarification for this recommendation for sure.
I just heard the end there, Emily. You said there's some points of clarification. You maybe repeat.
Oh, that was it. Just I was ending my sentence.
Okay, I might have missed the middle. Are there specific points of clarification that you would want to include?
Yeah, who the oversight would be? Would that be tribal? If it's supported by the state, is it overseen by tribal leaders or by a tribal leader entity like SCTCA or the northern version or the tribal governor's tribal affairs office? I'm just throwing out recommendations.
So a question about who's the oversight, perhaps like where this is housed. What about you, Lawrence? Any thoughts or additions?
Thoughts? Yeah. Is this the right format and entity to do the work? Yeah, it could be, but I would say it's better to get input from all tribes, not just the commission. I don't know how we would do that. It's one way to do it, and it might be it's a cost-effective way. But I could see the commission if it's regionally diverse delegates. There's a lot of tribes that won't have a seat on the commission.
Yeah, and just to remind you guys of the sub bullets of what this commission is being assigned to do and the recommendations, is that it would oversee the development implementation of a state program to purchase and return ancestral land. Will also advise and oversee the creation of a statewide goal for acres of land returned. And the commission will identify surplus land and establish pathways for return. So Emily, I saw your comment on tribal consultation. Is that perhaps a comment that process could fill some of the roles assigned to this commission or otherwise?
When Lawrence posed the question of because how he was saying, and I do agree that it should be done with the tribes, and how would that be done? That would be through tribal consultation, possibly. That could be a format.
Mm-hmm.
Once those, I don't know if it would be within the commission or like with the commission. Developing something is kind of hard.
Yeah, it's new. There's no exact model that this recommendation is following.
I'm thinking that maybe a sub bullet for this recommendation could be establishing and following a consultation process to ensure that all tribes in California can provide comment to this body. So if the body is a collection of chosen representatives, there's still a mechanism embedded in this recommendation that insists all tribes be consulted. I think that's what you were saying, Emily. Is that right?
Yeah, there's two things that,
Okay.
because there's like with the development of this commission in general, that it needs to be done with the tribes and not just, through a simple recommendation. And then, the governor takes that recommendation and takes that seed and lets it grow from there. But it needs to be brought to the tribes to see if that's even necessary or wanted or needed. Yeah. And there's many ways you could do that. And I would definitely recommend doing like multi-faced outreach for that too. Sending letters, having, webinar session information, like engagement sessions, how we had, just to see if that's, but I'm pretty sure you have to propose something as you do that, right? You can't just say, hey, let's get together and brainstorm. You have to brainstorm an actual, a proposed idea. So having that drafted outline, but having it, not fully confirmed or finalized, because the tribes, if it is going to be serving tribes, need to help, or not help, but have that insight on the development of the commission.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wonder if there's a additional line in the recommendation or a slight reframe to suggest that the concept of this commission is explored. And like you're saying, Emily, brought to tribal nations throughout the state to develop together. So perhaps we'll try to make an addition to this recommendation to reflect some of that and what you guys have just shared, and then we can revisit that language next time. Does that sound right?
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And then this question may be for later, actually, given what we just talked about, but there was also some input I wanted to share suggesting that in the recommendation, the task force should include a land return process with clear timelines and performance metrics. So some clearer kind of commitments and numbers. So any initial thoughts on that? If not, we can include that in the conversation when we review the updated language. Great. Okay, let's move on. Couple more questions here. Well, one more question here related to this commission. So one piece of community input was, I guess, kind of just going back to the question I just floated, was to create a tribal land equity advisory council. So slightly different name, which would be tasked with guiding the implementation of the task force's recommendations, advising on evolving needs, and assuring accountability over time. So my question for all of you, for you and Emily and Lawrence, both of you, is if you feel like that should be part of the commission concept that we were just talking about, or if this feels like an important separate recommendation to include. I want to know your thoughts on this piece of input. Any thoughts about these needs?
So originally it wasn't identified where this advisory committee would serve. It wouldn't be SGC. It would be through the commission.
The community input didn't specify. Yeah, so okay. I'm actually asking you guys what you think. I guess first, if you think that you want a recommendation to reflect some of these needs, so guiding the implementation of the task force recommendations, advising, ensuring accountability.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend an advisory group. I don't think it should live within the commission because that's not even a thing yet, right? It's just within living in our recommendations, which is great. But it should be, yes. I think the task force is more affiliated through SGC, so it makes sense to live there as a supporting role. Just like how why I have another call, California BIPOC Advisory, California Department Food and Agriculture, CDFA BIPOC Advisory. So that group, we meet quarterly. And that's not saying that's what this, advisory group would be or committee would be, but I'm just saying it does have um, it has its, positive outcomes or accomplishments. We do, have a good group of folks, but just like I'll always advocate, there needs to be more California Indian representation because there is, one, two, or three, but it's a start. So that's why I'm kind of reflecting in that way because it's something that I'm already participating in, and that's what's coming up for me as you brought up the question.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. That's helpful. Lawrence, any thoughts on this advisory council concept?
I agree with Emily about having it outside of the commission.
Okay. Great. Okay. Well, it sounds like there's some alignment. I think we can maybe draft up a recommendation and see where it fits best in goal 1. And we'll get that back to you. So let's move on. All right. So discussion on the right of first refusal process that is suggested in the report. First, I wanted to point out that this is reflected in 2 main places in the report right now. So in goal 1 and then also in goal 3.3. And so I think there was quite a bit of discussion that you all had in the August meeting, and we are actually still getting legal input and review on this concept. And then in addition to that, we are kind of making an effort across the report to ensure clarity and remove redundancy. So if there's, similar or the same concepts mentioned throughout the report, to kind of combine those. So I wanted to just make sure you both were aware of that. And then my first question for you is confirming kind of in what realm right of first refusal for tribal nations should be applied. And so right now it's framed about public land in goal 1. That's what it refers to. So if public land is disposed of and agencies get rid of it, tribal nations would have the first right of refusal. That 3.3 that you can see up on the slide is related to private land. And the wording is slightly different, and that's what we're kind of wanting to streamline a bit. But I just wanted to get your reflections on whether or not, 1.1D should be referring to public and private land, or what your thoughts are on that. So it may be a different way to frame that question, since 1.1 already suggests first right of refusal on state agency land. Do you both think that should also extend to private lands? So when private lands are sold.
Can you rephrase that, restate the last question? I didn't hear. Sorry, Tessa.
Yeah, sure. No worries. So 1.1 in goal 1 up at the top there outlines a first right of refusal program on public land. And I'm wondering if you guys think that should extend to private land, which is reflected in goal 3.3.
Absolutely, it should extend to private land. And it should not just be, because the way, I don't know if it reads it like that right now, because I'm not staring at my screen, I'm driving. But okay. How you stated it just now, like if private land, or excuse me, public land, if they're disposing of public land, it's not just the disposable land that we're asking them to do this first rights of refusal. It's also, you know, some of that pristine coastal land, that pristine, what they consider agricultural land, you know, that they would utilize for gain or, you know, capital gain by growing. We also are interested in those pristine lands and not just the disposable lands. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely private.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that just the disposal word is has a negative connotation. But yeah, I hear you. So any lands that are transferred
And
or moved.
not
Sorry? Did you want to jump in again, Emily? I'm not sure.
Yeah, sorry, my service cuts out right back there. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I was just saying, it's not just the word, but it's the actual lived experience of tribal nations that they usually do if they are offered land from, what is it, public or private land. Oftentimes it's that, what, you know, what we were talking about, the disposable, not so pristine land. And that's why I made the comment, not necessarily because you used just the word, but that's the actual experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, okay, public and private land. So I think that 1.1 and 3.3 separately are essentially reflecting that. And so I think that combining these in some way could work. And then there's other concerns that were raised during the August meeting was around ensuring that this policy recommendation is not pitting tribal nations against other priority producers. And so I think where you guys landed was that tribal nations would be followed by the first opportunity to purchase for priority producers, so non-tribal nations. So that's our understanding. I think one point of input from the community that's not necessarily reflected on this slide, but was about farm workers who are working the land and then say like a farmer decides to sell. And so there's input from the community that says they should have the first right of refusal. And so I wanted to kind of share that here and just see how we want to position that within this recommendation.
That the farm workers should?
Yeah, that was the input.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, that's fine. I think so. We just wanted to share that and think through how it could be positioned. And I think it's been really clear that tribes should have the first right of refusal. And so then is there maybe a second or a third sort of prioritization, or is it just sort of tribal nations and then priority producers who would come next?
There could definitely be, you know, after the due diligence of outreach to the tribal nation or nations, right? Of the, you know, proposed area or proposed land, let's say. After that is actually, you know, solidified and they're not interested, not, yeah, we reached out, we didn't hear back. Like there has to be that due diligence of, we did hear back, they are not, you know, at this time, they're not able to accept, you know, a land acquisition or take on a land acquisition, then yes, it could be offered to that.
Okay, I think I got most of that. Okay, well, this was helpful. I think confirming that we're referring to both private and public land is important, and then tribal nations will be followed by other groups.
And it sounds like, Tessa, just quickly to add to what you just said, tribal nations followed by other groups, but with a very clear outline of what is required to be done to ensure that a tribal nation does not accept that right of first refusal or does not want to take advantage. So just noting that as what I think we heard from you, Emily, and we'll make sure that that's part of the language that's being proposed.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I think we have time for a couple more slides here. Let's move on. Okay, great.
Do
So-
we need to distinguish what or clarify what public land is?
Did you want to add, maybe go back to the previous slide, Megan. Did you want to specify further, Lawrence? Currently it says all state agency land. Oh. There we go.
My apologies. My mouse.
Good.
So is it state? Because below it says public at the bottom of the slide. Does that mean state agency land?
Yeah, well, as written in this recommendation, that is what that's referring to, yeah. And I think that says state there because this report is, the audience is largely the legislature and the governor of the state. Did you want to make a suggested change to that or addition?
No, I just wanted to understand.
Okay, great.
And then private land,
Mhm.
does that mean residential?
So
What does
I
private
think,
land mean?
I think largely this is referring to ag land. Let's look at the words here. Tribal nations. So yeah, this is another really good question. I think it's implied in the report when these recommendations are positioned within the report that we're referring to ag land. And I think if you want to specify, that would be really important. So I don't think it's referring to residential, but perhaps there's some additional parameters we want to lay out.
Yeah, we want to be clear that it's agricultural, if that's what it is. If it's not residential, we want to be clear on that.
Great, okay. Specify agricultural and then of course including some of those qualifiers that Emily was talking about as well. High quality, viable, coastal when available.
Okay.
That's helpful. Thank you, Lawrence.
What about county and city land?
Yeah, so that would not be state agency land. And I think there's
Does the legislature have jurisdiction over that?
That is a complicated question. I think we could probably get back to you with some more specifics on that, but essentially county and city agencies would have jurisdiction over those lands more so than the state. And the state would have jurisdictions over its state agency lands. There are some yeah, go ahead, Camille. I'm just gonna say there are some.
Oh, no, I was just gonna note, yeah, I think exactly as you said it, Tessa, but if you look at this 3.3A, it is talking about first opportunity to purchase ordinances, which is funding because city, county governments have control over city and county owned land. But there is a recommendation here to physically assist those local jurisdictions in creating ordinances that would offer a, right of first refusal process. So I think that what we could do is make sure that that kind of language, right now it's, I think, speaking to privately held land, but what I'm hearing is maybe thinking about how could the state also encourage the adoption of a right of first refusal process for county and city land as well. Does that sound correct? Just making sure that those levels of recommendation are both at the public level, different kinds of jurisdiction of public land, as well as at the private level. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right. It's a big jump because you're going from state land, and then we're saying the state has some type of jurisdiction over the private land. So the state can require private landowners to offer their land for sale to a tribe, but the state can't offer, or the state can't do the same for a county or a city.
I do not think the state can require private landowners to do that. I think that's why this is when it comes to private land. So that's why that first one is focused on all state agency land. I think the 3.3A is suggesting that.
I thought we're changing. I guess I misunderstood. I thought we were going to add private land to bullet 1.1 D.
Yeah, so I think maybe we should do a little bit of a reorganization. And again, like I mentioned from the beginning, this is still going through legal review as well. But I think if we combine these two to kind of pull out certain parts of both of them, that's where we'll get one more streamlined recommendation. And I think the approach to private land, as you see in 3.3, is encouraging localities to adopt these ordinances. And so then that would apply to private land in their locality, in their jurisdiction. And it would be the first opportunity to purchase, in contrast to this first recommendation, which is saying transferring the land to a tribe at zero or minimal cost, which could be more feasible from when we're thinking about state-owned public land than if we're thinking about private land. Does that distinction make sense, Lawrence? Exactly to your point, because the state can't force a private individual to give their land to a tribe.
I think maybe what would be helpful, and I believe Tessa, you're already working on this, because I know you're doing some investigation into this right of first refusal for public land, and then how does it relate to first opportunity to purchase for private land. It seems like maybe some kind of top level understanding of jurisdiction and control over land market. You know, basically these are preemptive rights is what they're called. Preemptive rights to either accept land that is publicly owned, that is being transferred, or to say, I want to buy this land that otherwise would go on the open market. So I think maybe just to back out of what are the different mechanisms across jurisdiction, who has control over who can or cannot buy and sell land, sounds valuable. And I know, Tessa, you're already working on that. So maybe Lawrence and Emily, we can just make sure that that is provided to you when this revised language is presented. Tessa, does that also make sense to you as a way of contextualizing? Okay.
Helpful to facilitate the next round of this conversation. All right. Well, yeah, and I think we've already recapped a bit of what you all have already shared, but apologies for that sort of circular conversation, but nonetheless, I think it's helpful in clarifying about the direction that we want to go with this recommendation. So thank you for that. And let's see if we can get to one more.
And I just want to say for the 1.1, so I did mention agricultural land, but that is a, let's see. For tribes, do we want to limit it to agricultural land? Or just ancestral land in general that a state agency owns and is looking to transfer?
It would make sense to expand it to ancestral, Lawrence.
Mm-hmm. Because this is what, I mean, that's what it says now, but I did mention agricultural land, and I was talking about the question down here, the right of first refusal apply to public and or private land.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the state owns land that's not agricultural, there should be a mechanism, or we want to give tribes access and ownership of that land.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. We'll include that as another kind of cross section when we're looking at the differences between public and private.
Okay.
Let's see here. Yeah, let's get to one more before we have to close out at 11. So goal 1.1.a, the recommendation is transfer ancestral lands to tribal nations free from restrictions and encumbrances. So we got some interagency input that we wanted to share with you all. Which
That's
was
a really quick, Lawrence raised his hand, just wondering if there's something more priority, Lawrence.
Sure, yeah, go ahead, thank you.
Yeah, so back to the other slide, I just wanted to clarify that, and just want to be careful with our words. Tessa, you had mentioned that the state cannot require a private individual to give their land to a tribe. I just want to clarify that I never mentioned that. So that I just want to say that if a private individual wanted to give their land to a tribe, that would be great. But I never said that that the state should, and I don't think anyone on the task force has said that the state should require a private individual to give land to a tribe. I think they should. It's been considered maybe that they should. There should be a mechanism to where if an individual wants to sell that land to a tribe, private land I'm talking about, that should be a thing. But I never, I don't think it's ever been stated by the task force that the state wants to require a private individual to give land to a tribe. Just to clarify.
Thanks for, yeah, and I didn't mean to put words in your mouth, Lawrence. I think that is indeed the difference between opportunity to purchase on private land versus the right of first refusal. So we will not imply that in the drafted language.
I'm wondering, thank you, Lawrence, for that correction. I'm wondering, Tessa, given time, whether you do think we have time for one more discussion, or if you want to show Emily and Lawrence what else is there and see next steps. I imagine Emily has to hop right at 11 to her other call.
Yeah, sure. It sounds like there is a willingness to meet again before the October meeting. So we wanted to kind of give you a quick fly through of the topics that we wanted to get to today in these 2 hours, as a little preview for what you all can discuss, potentially in a working group meeting, so that we can then get that information into the public meeting space in October. So yeah, let's do that, Megan, if you don't mind. So yeah, instead of actually discussing these slides, I will just kind of outline what the main topic is here. So there's some interagency input on this first recommendation in goal 1. Basically considering that this as written would require some changes to the California Constitution. So wanting to talk through options about how to address that. Go to the next slide. Some community input in a couple of different instances was pointing to new options for ways to hold land and a state recognition process for tribal nations versus just or in addition to the federal process. And so these are big questions that we definitely want to discuss with you all. Next slide. There's quite a few here about terminology and definitions. So these are some of the glossary terms and also some of what's referenced in goal 1. There's interagency input around changing the term tribal nations that the task force has been working with to California Native American tribes. We can talk about the reasons for that and hear your input on that. During the August meeting, there was a request by the task force members to add to the glossary these 2 definitions that you see up here to explicitly define federally recognized and non-federally recognized California tribal nations. So we did that. We want to review those definitions with you.
I'm pretty sure originally that was the recommendation that we have California tribal nations in there. So I don't want to waste any time reviewing this recommendation because it should have been California tribal nations from the get-go.
Okay. Well, let's revisit that. And we don't need to waste a lot of time next time we talk, but I think our understanding had been that tribal nations was the preferred term, and there's absolutely no issue changing back to California Native American tribes if that's the preferred one.
No, I said California tribal nations, but I'm open to hear about.
I see. Okay, I see. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your comment. Okay, well, we don't need to spend too much time on that one regardless, but we'll just keep it on the list. And as we have time, we can get to it.
And this will be discussed in October, you said?
Yeah, so the question for you guys is if you want to discuss this as a working group or a subcommittee before October.
I would. Would you, Lawrence?
Sure. Yes.
Great. Okay. Acknowledging the timeline and the goals that we have for the October meeting, I think that would be best. So it sounds like you're interested in talking about these topics. There are quite a few more terms if you want to keep going, Megan, just to give a sneak peek. Tribal sovereignty, that definition is now in the glossary. Keep going. Input on eligibility and kind of ensuring equity across tribes upon implementation of these recommendations. So we can talk through those pieces of input. Next slide. And then, yeah, these are more questions about how to define eligibility. We can keep going. And then, yeah, these are kind of additional input on terminology. So defining traditional tribal uses as outlined in the legislation that created the task force. And I believe that is the last one. And then as time permits, we can talk about the order of recommendations and the level of detail. So yeah, I think Megan, maybe I'll just leave the rest to you to kind of plan a little bit as far as next steps go and when we can meet next.
Sure. Well, let's pause. We do have one public attendee. Reen, if you're interested in public comment, please go ahead and use your raised hand feature and we'll know to unmute you. We'll just pause for a moment or two. Okay, well, it sounds like there is interest in meeting again in advance of October. Because I think we're running up against a timeline here, we might need to move work to a working group, which is great since the working groups can be formed with 2 committee members, 2 task force members. So I will work to schedule time with you, Lawrence and Emily, maybe next week. I'll reach out to you and check your schedules, or maybe even later this week, I'm not sure. To carry on this conversation. And then also upcoming this week, more subcommittee conversations. All of these subcommittees met for the first time last week and had more conversation to have as well. So tomorrow is goal 3 from 3 to 5. Then Friday is goal 2 from 9 to 11. Next week, Tuesday, the 23rd is goal 4, 9 to 10:30. And restorative lands meets next week, Wednesday, the 24th from 3 to 5. And all of this work happens in advance of the full task force meeting, which is October 15th and 16th in Ventura for virtual attendance. So that was a fast conversation today. Thank you, Emily and Lawrence, for joining us. We're just at 11 o'clock. I think we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, Lawrence.
General public comment?
I did not see any hands up.
Okay. But general public comment, we need to provide opportunity for that, correct?
Right. Oh, sorry. I had asked Irene if she had public comment for either.
Oh, okay. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your support.
Thanks, Lauren.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. All right. Stop.